Hello chess friends and welcome to your Art of Chess channel and welcome to another great game of the round 3 of the Norway Chess tournament in 2023. We're following now the leader of the event, Fabiano Caruana, against Aryan Tari from the round 3, and Fabi already beat Magnus Carlsen in the super event, so in my opinion Fabi is now the top favorite to win the whole thing. Fabi played with awesome chess so far, so in my opinion if he continues to play like this, then nothing can stop him for sure. So let's see now what happened in this game between Caruana and Aryan Tari. In my opinion, this was a game of great theoretical value, and also it's a certain game that you can, I think, show your kids when you maybe try to teach them positional understanding, try to teach them how to trade pieces, how to maybe even play the positions with the king in the center. So I think the games that Fabi play always have a certain theoretical value, but also great middle game strategies that can be applied in every stage of the game. So let's see now what happened. In my opinion, really beautiful game played by both of them. So Fabi with the white pieces opened with the move d4. Tari's response was knight to f6, c4 e6, knight to f3, the anti-Nimzo or counter-Nimzo-Indian setup. We don't want to get pinned after knight to c3, bishop to b4. Here in the continuation we have now the move d5, transposition into the queen's gambit decline, and now Fabi goes into the exchange variation, c takes d5, and now after move e takes d5 we have here really this static center setup. Now we want to occupy from white's perspective this square, c5 e5. On the other hand, c4 e4 are now black's targets to continue with the black pieces. So knight to c3, we have now the move c6. This is now becoming a sort of Slav defense structure, but exchange variation. You can basically get the same position after something like d4 d5, c4 c6, knight to f3, knight to f6, maybe knight to c, and then you trade it off, and then we would reach the same position. So usually you get this kind of a setup. So after move c takes d5, we have here queen to c2 by Fabiano Caruana. We have g6 preparing now the move bishop to f5, and now comes a very important move that you have to play with the white pieces, and I played really many times this position. I'm not lying. I played maybe even 50 times on leeches this position for sure, and this is a common position where you are reaching this position out, you're getting your bishop out, and then of course you're trying to lock here the pawn chain with the move e3. It's very important to of course play with the bishop. If you play e3 first, then your bishop would be locked on c1 through the whole game. So here in the game, bishop to e7 has to be played now also by black. If black continues immediately with the move bishop to f5, this is not good. Then you get this position, queen to b3, and attacking the pawn on b7. The queen is suddenly overloaded to the defense of the pawn on b7 and also to the defense of the knight. This is not good. Usually black steps back, and now with the move e4 the game becomes really devastating here for black. Knight to e5, f7 is the target. We'll play bishop to c4, knight takes e4. So I've discussed this position many times here on my YouTube chess channel. This is simply almost game over here for black. So that's why after move bishop to e7 you have to play first instead of bishop to f5. Now we have e3, and now comes bishop to f5, basically trading off now the bad light square bishop of blacks. We have to say it's not such a good piece because you have too many pawns on light squares, so that's why you're trying to get your light square bishop out and trade it off for the powerful bishop of white, because white had here this powerful bishop on d3. So mission accomplished, I think, for black. Black gained equality in this position. So from this point on we have reached really one of the most common positions of a Slav defense structure. So in the game we have now kingside castling by Aryan Tari, and I like to say that I know something about these positions. Look at this. This kingside castling is perfectly fine, but in my opinion now these days maybe a slightly better approach to the game is to play first knight from b to d7, because many times bishop to f6 will happen. We have to say this is a Fianchetto position when you play g6. Of course this is not the perfect Fianchetto because the bishop is not on g7, but we have to treat really this position as a Fianchetto position, and when white attacks the Fianchetto setup, then we are losing flank attacks. We're playing h4 h5, we're trying to undermine maybe here the pawn chain, and that's how the position should be treated. And when you play the Fianchetto position maybe with the black pieces, then you want to have your knight on f6. The knight on f6 is controlling the h5 square. Then h4 h5 is maybe I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard to achieve for white this h4 h5 breakthrough. For instance, if bishop to f6 happens now, then knight to f6, and then you see after h4 h5 we have a great control of the square, and as I said, white will have a tough time to break and enter in these types of structures. After move queen to d3, Aryan Tari played kingside castling immediately, and now Fabi goes with the move bishop to f6. And I've talked about this position, as I said many times. It's very important now to create this flank attack immediately. And I had even the discussion with my nephew Philip. He always, when he played his games, he always castled kingside and played a sort of solid game. Had, I think, also decent success in these types of positions, but in my opinion, this approach to attack immediately, the Fianchetto, is, in my opinion, really brilliant choice here by Fabiano Caruana. Now h5 is basically unstoppable. If you play h5, then look at this queenside castling. Maybe you can play knight from b to d7, but we'll play rook to g1 and then h4, maybe g4, g takes h5. So in my opinion, this position will explode in the next couple of moves here on the king side. And there is also a beautiful example that I've also analyzed here on my YouTube chess channel. It's a game played by Yasser Servan against Yung Zhu, in which Yasser Servan, the legendary commentator, the legendary chess book, outplayed his opponent in this position with a breakthrough motif with the move g4. So it's really hard for black now to defend this position, in my opinion. Although the engine loves this position for both sides, I really would always love to play more the game here from white's perspective, especially because of this h5 breakthrough goal. So now Aryan Tari is trying to spice up the game with the move knight to a6, knight to b4, maybe attacking the queen, and also c5, breaking now the position, liberating the long diagonal here for the dark square bishop. So Fabi continues with this plan, stays with the king in the center, h5. This is the way to go. We have c5. Now Tari applies the principle that says that if you get attacks on the flanks, then you should, of course, counterplay in the center of the board. We have another move, c5, rook to d1. Fabi stays still with the king in the center. We have knight to b4, attacking now the queen. The queen drops back to e2, and now rook to e8, of course, placing the rook where already the queen and the kings are. So now Aryan Tari is somehow trying to break the center, trying to open the center like you're supposed to do in these types of positions. So that's why Fabi plays an interesting idea, king to f1. He gets at least one of these heavy pieces out of the e-file mess, and now Aryan Tari has still, I think, a tough time to open a position in the center. There's simply not an easy way to somehow make something happen. Maybe knight to c6, but then also your d5 pawn is a little bit weak. So in my opinion, good strategic play by Fabi. Look at this, the king is on f1, but there's simply not a good way here for black to attack the position immediately. So we have rook to c8, h takes g6, we have h takes g6, g3, king to g7, and now king to g2. Fabi found a way how to secure the king without casting. Really good moves here. We have c takes d4, knight to d4. Now Aryan Tari is capped with the isolated d pawn, and there is, of course, the rule that you should play on a blockade against this isolated pawn. So Fabi has this setup and has also opportunities maybe to play something like queen to f3, queen to g4, and then maybe knight to e2, controlling further the d4 square, because the strategic goal of blacks now is to somehow advance the pawn, somehow to break and enter with the d pawn to get rid of the isolated pawn simply. So it's a tough battle, but this is the basic strategic goal. So that's why it's understandable what actually Aryan Tari did here. He's trying somehow to get the d4 goal by playing the move knight to c6, but this is unfortunately not working. Now Fabi uses this moment, and he realizes, of course, that simply the d5 pawn is weak. It's an isolated d pawn. It's a weakness. We have to say it. It's a strategic disadvantage in black's position. The better way was to play the move queen to d7, because white will simply continue to attack this pawn. You can maybe play rook to h8, we'll trade it off, and we'll simply pick up the pawn after move a3. d5 is still of course a vulnerable piece, but at least you're protecting this position for a while. What Aryan Tari did, he played the move knight to c6, but now after queen to f3, rook to e5 has to be played. If you play something like knight to d4, then e takes d4, and there's not a good way anymore to defend this pawn in any way. So the pawn on d5 is falling, and from this point on, I think it's a one-way ticket in white's favor. So it's the after move queen to f3, rook to e5. Aryan Tari has to play now strange moves with the rooks. Of course, the rook is not belonging like this in the center of the board. The rook could be in danger. So here in the game, knight to e2 by Fabi. He's trying knight to f4, and then also attack for the d5 pawn. So we have rook to f5, knight to f4, g5 is of course not working, queen to g4 is going to happen, or d4 is also not working, e4 is going to happen, and then we have opportunities to jump with the knight on d5, maybe queen to g4, queen to h3, in some ideas, maybe in some lines even e5 is possible. Of course, so far black has a great control, but e5, maybe queen to b7. So many ideas come to my mind here, but all of them I think are simply in white's favor. So that's why after knight to f4, Aryan Tari plays the normal idea, bishop to c3, gets rid of one of these great attackers against the pawn on d5. We have b takes c3, queen to g5, and now queen to e2 here by Fabi, because if you play now rook to h8, that was really a beautiful move here, queen to e2 by Fabi. Then look at this, what happens, rook to h8, king to h8, and now you have opportunities to play queen to b2, attacking the pawn on b7, and also c4 is a breakthrough with a discovered check. This is really amazing. So for instance, b6 and then c4 is, in my opinion, again opening the position in a beautiful way here for white. So that's why after move queen to e2, Aryan Tari played queen to e7. He's trying maybe to somehow hang on to this dark core problems that he has, but queen to e7 is still also not working, because now simply the d5 pawn is hanging. From this point on, I think Fabi has now completely winning game here for sure. So queen to e6 attacking, we have e4, and here after queen to e8, Aryan Tari hopes that maybe Fabi has some problems on the e-file, but of course Fabi continues the pressure. Rook to e1, we have queen to c8, which seems so that you cannot take out the rook here, because you lose also the queen on e2, but that's exactly what Fabi did. Brilliant idea, brilliant tactics. E takes f5, and we have rook takes e2, f6, this beautiful Zwischenzug, this intermediate check by the pawn, beautiful idea. King to f8, rook takes e2, knight, queen to f5, rook, we have c4, fixing knight of course on d5, knight to e5, and now after move rook to e1, there's nothing that can be done. You have not time to pick up, of course, the pawn on c4. If that happens, then you get a checkmate here on e8. So that's why after move queen to f3 that Tari played, and king to g1, there's simply no good move anymore for for Aryan Tari. You lose the knight on e5 or lose the game. So in this position, actually Aryan Tari resigned. So great game by Fabi. Really interesting ideas of the Slav structure, the exchange variation. This position, if you're d4 player, I think will happen to you many times. As I said, it happened to me many times. This strategic goal to trade off the bishop for a knight in this position, you have to be familiar with. I think it's very important then to create a flank attack, h4, h5. So brilliant ideas here by Aryan Tari. So it means that Fabi is now really the sole leader of the super event. He has now great chances to make something, but still, of course, it's a tough time. You play against many great players like Alireza Firouzja, Nordinbek. So every round we have, I think, a derby. That's the beauty about this tournament. Every round we'll see an epic battle. So you don't have easy games here for sure. So, but so far it was a great tournament for Fabiano Caruana. So, okay, if you want to see more games from this chess event, check out our coverage so far. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say. Chess is the best, of course.